Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello everyone. Today I'm going to present my thesis which regards the issue of non-adjust recommendations from the Auditor General. The agenda for today includes introduction and some explanation of the problem, which is then accompanied of course by a literature review, following the methodology by Auditor research, along with the results, findings and analysis, and finally some recommendations. The problem which this project concerns can be divided into two main parts. The first part concerns the disregard of all institutions to all recommendations provided by the Auditor General each year in his audit reports. These recommendations are provided for the purpose of remedying issues which were found during the audit process. However, the non-adjustment of the auditor's recommendation was considered as a serious issue from the European Commission in the Kosovo Progress Report in 2014, from paper assessments, and different World Bank and different reports from local NGOs. The second part deals with lack of parliamentary oversight to deal with the aforementioned issue. As it will be explained later, for the external audit model which is used in Kosovo, parliamentary attention is absolutely essential. So this project had two main goals. The first goal was to understand the reasons behind the failure of public institutions to address the auditor's recommendations, and the second goal was to be able to come up with feasible ways to improve parliamentary oversight, which in turn would improve the whole accountability system in Kosovo. This figure shows the three main external audit models used in the world. We have the Westminster, Judicial, and College. The model which is used in Kosovo and in many Commonwealth countries is the Westminster model. As you can see, the figure shows the features of this model. So basically, the Supreme Audit Institution, or the Office of the Auditor General, is the main mechanism used by the Parliament to ensure or to maintain the government accountable. As such, this institution is also funded by the state budget and reports to the Parliament. We can see one important term highlighted right here, PAC, or the Public Accounts Committee. In Commonwealth, it is known as a Public Accounts Committee and is a committee inside the Parliament which deals specifically with the auditor's report. In Kosovo, this committee is known as the Commission for Oversight of Public Finances, or for shortcut COT, which was created in 2009 by the Kosovo Institute for Research and Development, KIPRAD, funded by the British Embassy and in close cooperation with the Parliament. To better explain the process, I have included this figure from the Department for International Development. So first, the Parliament approves the state budget, which is then granted to the government. Then there comes into play the Supreme Audit Institution, which in Kosovo is known as the Office of the Auditor General, that examines the spending that was performed by the government, and then prepares the audit reports, which are then submitted to the Parliament. Following this step, the committee inside the Parliament, or the Commission for Oversight of Public Finances, has two main functions. The core function is to prepare its own report with its own findings and suggestions to which the government has to respond, and second, to hold public sessions where governmental officials have been held accountable. However, the area highlighted with red shows the leak in the accountability system in Kosovo, because even though the Commission for Oversight of Public Finances was created in 2009 to deal with the auditor's report, it has failed to complete its duty, because no report from this commission has ever been issued. Yes, public sessions have been held where governmental officials have been held accountable. However, its core function has not been completed, thus it has failed. But what really is the Office of the Auditor General, and what does this office do? According to the Constitution, it is the highest institution of economic and financial control. It was established in 2003 by OMBICA regulations. According to these regulations, the Auditor General had to be of foreign nationality. That served as an argument for transparency and independence of the institution. However, with the new draft law approved in 2013, the Auditor General does not have to be international anymore. It just has to have the necessary qualifications to complete this job. The main goals of these institutions are to increase accountability and to promote transparency. So basically, the means for a democratic society. The main means that it uses to achieve these goals are by auditing all public institutions institutions and publishing all these reports. Fortunately, it audits all institutions except for the central bank, which there was no reason why they didn't do it. But nevertheless, the central bank doesn't allow for the Auditor General to intervene with their finances. But what types of audit does the Auditor General perform? There are two main types of audit. The first one is the regularity audit, which is legally bound. So there, the Office of the Auditor General checks the financial statements, whether they are done in accordance with national and international standards of accounting, and whether spending of the government was done as according to plans. The other type of audit is the performance audit, which is not legally bound, so it's up to the Auditor General to decide. And this type of audit, they check if the government has brought value for its money. So what is the output from that money that they have spent? This is done by evaluating three main elements: efficiency, effectiveness, and economy. This is a graph which shows a number of total recommendations from 2010 to 2012. The reason why I didn't include 2013 is because progress with regards to 2013 recommendations are presented in the 2014 report, which is not published yet, so we don't have that information. However, going back to the graph, we can see that in each year, the number of recommendations went increasing. Nevertheless, we cannot contribute this increase to negative occurrences only. First, because the potential explanation why the number of recommendations increased is because the number of institutions audited increased as well. While we had 87 institutions audited in 2010 and 2011, that number increased to 90 in 2012. Furthermore, because communication between public institutions and the Auditor General increased and strengthened, the auditor was able to go into more detail in his reports and thus provide more recommendations. And finally, final explanation is that the number of recommendations increased because more irregularities were found, and those combined with the previous years that were ignored made up for a bigger number. In the audit report, the Auditor General shows how many recommendations were fully addressed, partially addressed, and unaddressed. Because this project deals with the issue of unaddressed, this graph shows the progress of, or the situation of unaddressed recommendations for the same period, so 2010 to 2012. As you can see, in 2010, this percentage, 34% of total from the auditor's recommendations were not addressed. That percentage decreased in 2011, 28%, only to increase again to 32% in 2012. Implementing the Auditor General is an legal obligation of each public institution, as doing otherwise will lead to financial losses and continuous inaccurate reporting. For example, implementing his recommendations can lead to significant savings in public money. For example, in the United Kingdom's audit report in 2014, they show how £1.1 billion were saved in total thanks to the auditor's recommendations and their implementation. Now, unfortunately, such data does not exist in Kosovo, and I'm assuming it wouldn't be as possible. This final graph shows the situation with regards to municipalities in Kosovo and their progress with recommendations of 2012. The Initiative for Progress organization prepared a report where they expressed their concern how municipalities are in the worst condition with regards to implementing recommendations from the Auditor General. As you can see, the blue bar, which represents non-implemented recommendation, is higher than the green bar, or the implemented recommendation for every municipality, including those that are not presented in this graph. For this reason, I conducted a research of qualitative nature. So I conducted 4 interviews for the purpose of obtaining information from institutions that were affected by or related to the work of the Auditor General. So first, I interviewed former Auditor General, A.U.K, and I found an audit at the Auditor General to understand more about the issue of non-implemented recommendations. Second, I interviewed who is also one of the 3 founders of the Commission for Oversight of Public Finances. I wanted to know the difficulties that this commission faces. Third, I Alexander Fellinger, which is a project leader of GIZ, a German organization that plans to become the main donor of the Commission for Oversight of Public Finances. And finally, because public institutions are the accused party in this project, I interviewed Deputy Mayor of Pristina, Mr. Gandan. The reason why I chose the municipality of Pristina is because, as I mentioned earlier, municipalities are the institutions with most problems when it comes to implementing auditors' recommendations. Second, because the municipality of Pristina is the largest municipality with the largest budget allocated to it. And finally, because the deputy mayor was more accessible than others. So going back to my goals, what were the reasons, I'm trying to understand the reasons why public institutions don't address recommendations. These are the results that I obtained from the interview. So the first two reasons are the reasons, justifications provided by public institutions why they don't accept or implement the recommendations. First, they say that they seem unclear or they didn't understand them, and secondly, they are not related to the institution's priorities. However, if we analyze them, we come up with the conclusion that they are not really valid. The first one is not valid because the Auditor General has years that has been working with standardizing and clarifying its recommendations. I actually asked the 3 other interviewees, and they all answered that the recommendations now are very clear and standardized. But even before, if they didn't understand recommendations, they could have asked for clarifications or send their staff to trainings. The second one isn't valid either, because just because something is not considered as a priority, that still remains irregularity, and it should stop. It cannot continue occurring. The other reasons regard the unqualified staff to work with regards to auditing matters. Sometimes former Auditor General stated that public institutions don't even bother to justify their negligence to his recommendations. And other reasons, which were mentioned by interviewees, regard the lack of communication between public institution and the Auditor General, because the former believed that they didn't understand his work and believed that the auditors were after individual cases rather than strengthening the accountability system as a whole, and thus they did not respond to his work because maybe they didn't understand it. And finally, because there is lack of political will to improve the issues. Another interesting result was the main areas where public institutions failed to adjust their recommendations. They include public procurement, advance payments and high salaries, and asset registrations. These 3 fields are also related or more prone to corruption, as we know, and are major issues in the country. After I got these results, I went to check individual reports from public institutions, and an interesting case is from the Privatization Fund and Privatization Agency, where in both years 2012 and 2013 in the reports, 11 same recommendations were repeated, and five of them concerned advance payments and high salaries, with none of them being fully addressed, while 6 of them concerned the public procurement processes, with only 2 of them being addressed. In both years, the auditor expressed concern with regards to this situation. And now the second part of the problem, which is parliamentary oversight, I asked why do we have such a weak parliamentary oversight in a model where it is essential to have a strong parliamentary oversight? Why the Commission for Oversight of Public Finance has failed to complete its duty? And from what I received from all the interviewees is that the main issue with this Commission is the independence issue. Although in Commonwealth country where we took this model, the majority of members are from the opposition. In Kosovo, the majority of members were from the government, and the governmental influence was very high. Actually, former Auditor General stated that not one single issue that was sensitive to the government was ever tackled by this institution. And of course, this issue then followed the quality of work, which is affected, timeliness. They are a little too late. They were formed in 2009 to create reports, but not one single report has been ever created. And of course, privatization issues is a major problem when we have high governmental influence. Although this issue is very serious and no magic can be done to cure it. I still provided some recommendations for the purpose of improving the issue. So the first one is, of course, significantly improve parliamentary oversight. Of particular importance is that the Commission for Oversight of Public Finances starts doing its job, starts preparing the reports, which should be submitted to the Parliament and discussed there, and the government will feel more pressure to respond to the auditor's recommendations. Furthermore, they should make these reports accessible to the media and to the civil society. Second is also a similar recommendation found in the European Commission Kosovo Progress Report of 2014, but it's also valuable for this project. So the Commission for Oversight of Public Finances should focus on creating mechanisms that will ease the follow-up process of implementing the auditor's recommendations. For these two recommendations, no additional cost will be added to the Commission. They will just have to work with their current allocated budget of 5,000 euros, which does not include salaries that are provided by the Parliament. Furthermore, I recommended that the Auditor General should start providing summaries of its reports of less than 10 pages so that they can become more readable for people. Currently, the audit reports go above 60 pages and are not very understandable by people who don't know auditing matters. Thus, creating summaries with most important points will be more accessible to people and will make this institution more familiar to citizens, because it is a very important institution, as the Constitution considers it the highest one for economic and financial control. However, it is not very familiar to people. Next, since one of the issues was lack of communication between the Office of the Auditor General and public institutions, I recommend that the Commission should remain in constant interaction with the Auditor General and the Parliament. They should inform the Auditor General with regards to parliamentary interest, although the final decision on selecting topics, of course, remains the Auditor General, whose independence is guaranteed by law. Next, public institutions should work in their internal audit. When the Auditor General comes up with more than 15 recommendations every year, many of them deal with errors and fraud in financial statements, then that in a way reflects failure of internal audit of an institution. Thus, they should either hire more staff in internal audit, train their current staff, or adopt integrated technological systems as other countries have done to improve their internal audit. And finally, all my interviewees agreed that media and civil society can have a strong impact in improving accountability of a country. So I recommend that media and civil society become active participants in implementing the auditor's recommendations. We could take issues or topics that are important to public interest and publish reports, take them out on TV. And we can also take as a success story in South Africa, there's an NGO that takes public information and publishes report. What did the government do with regards to recommendations from the auditors? What should they have done and what should they do in the future? Thank you for your attention.
Questions? The auditor's report is public, it's on the website.
Yes.
And I know we keep talking about recommendations from the auditor, but are there penalties, consequences when certain recommendations are not met, or just not at all? No penalties.
There are no penalties. This is the reason why one of the interviewees proposed that we switch the models from Westminster to judicial, where the Auditor General operates as a court of accounts. So there's no need for parliamentary oversight, but the auditor can punish if there are found irregularities. However, when I discussed with my interviewees, it was just beyond my scope, so I didn't include it as an alternative. However, it is one.
It might be a better alternative for Kosovo.
This is what actually Alberta Snishi from Kipra had said. And yeah, it may be. However, the switch to the model it's more difficult than we believe, because everything should have to be changed. Staff should be changed, their backgrounds, our financials should be judicial. Everything, the whole model should change.
I see, the balance comes with the Commission. To what extent does the legislation which creates the Commission to what extent does it stipulate membership, the criteria for membership? Is that a shortcoming?
Yes, apparently, because it should be led by the opposition, and of course the commission should be made from members of all political parties. However, the majority is usually from the opposition, but in Kosovo is from the government. And yes, although in paper it is almost the same law as in Commonwealth countries, but it's not respected in practice, unfortunately. Although the leadership of the commission has changed, which is a good news, hopefully. And from the information that I obtained is that they are trying to, they have held meetings where they agreed that they will deal only with the auditor's report, something which they were created actually for, but they haven't done since 2011.
Final question? Colleagues? No? Thank you very much.